Hello, I'm here with Emma Browning. Hello, Emma. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks, David. How are you?
Good. I'm very well, thank you. We're here, obviously, to discuss the concepts of future-proofing yourself. And I'm really keen to find out how Emma has future-proofed herself through her career, what she's learned on her journeys, some of her stories of things that have gone well, and obviously some of the stories that things that perhaps haven't gone so well, but I'm sure there's lots of learning from those. Plus also I'm really keen to find out at the end of this conversation about what Emma's doing to future-proof herself for the future, to help her in her career and obviously to continue to develop her business. So the first question to start off with is, Emma, could you just give us a brief overview of your career to date?
Yeah, of course. So I often kind of talk to people about my career as being a career of two halves, because the first 14 years of my career was actually spent in recruitment. So don't hate me when I say that, because I know a lot of people have got bad impressions of recruitment agencies, but I did start on the high street, working for a small French company called Echo. And essentially Echo became part of the Adecco group. They merged as two. And I worked looking after a temp desk, then looking after permanent recruitment. And then I went to their head office in Boreham Wood, where I was an account director for BT. I was looking after all the BT call centres around the UK. And that included sort of negotiating with trade unions, helping get better benefits in place for the temporary workers that they had working in their call centres, because it wasn't a great time to be working in the call centres in the late 1990s. And that's really what sparked my interest in HR, because I kind of thought, well, hang on a minute, BT are beating us up because all of their people are leaving, because it's not a great place to work. They don't train them, they don't develop them, and they don't look after them. And guess what? They don't perform very well. And I thought, well, hang on, if you treat people well and you train them and you develop them, there is a link between how they then perform in your business. Yes. So that was my sort of light bulb moment, really, when I thought, you know what, I really want to get into HR. This is something that I'm really keen to explore a bit more. So I made the decision to leave recruitment, and basically I started at the bottom in HR 20 years ago. So yeah, that's kind of where we are. Wow. And have spent the last 20 years in HR.
Yeah, okay. And that's in businesses, plus now you run your own consultancy.
That's right. So, the 20 years in HR has been firstly in sort of high-tech manufacturing, so working with a scientific company, but they were also manufacturing. So working with lots of very, very clever people, engineers, scientists, and then moved into automotive, where I worked for some very well-known brands that you've probably heard of, such as Porsche cars in Reading, and then Harley Davidson in Oxford, which I then left Harley Davidson and set up on my own 5 years ago.
Yeah, and now you're providing support to who?
So I now provide support to a wide variety of businesses from lots of different sectors, whether it's scientific, manufacturing, engineering, professional services businesses, but generally small businesses who don't have an HR support function. So they're not big enough maybe to have a full-time HR person. And I'll be providing them with advice and support on anything from how to recruit in the right way, how to develop their people, how to retain them, how to get the most out of them, and everything to do with their people, basically.
Yeah. Okay. So going back to the start of your career, what do you wish you'd known at the start of your career?
Well, I didn't go to university. So I was one of those people who left school at 16. I went on to do A-levels because when I left school in 1984, it was the year of, high unemployment.
Yeah.
There was a record out by my God, I'm showing my age now, aren't I? By UB40 called I Am the 1 in 10, which was 1 in 10 people. 1 in 10 people were unemployed in that year. And so I went into a job which was telesales, and everybody was saying to me, but you've got to know what you want to do at 16. You've got to know what you want to do. You know, what's your career? Are you going to be a teacher or a policewoman or a nurse? Well, I didn't know what I wanted to do at 16. And I wish what I had known at 16 was that your career can change and will change over, you know, a course of, how many years do we have at work? 40, 45, something like that.
And the rest now.
So I wish, yeah, exactly. So I wish somebody had said to me, you know, go and explore a few things, see what you like doing, and then maybe make a decision in a few years' time, or even in 10 years' time, about what direction you'd like your career to go in. Yeah. But I think at 16, 18, or even when you leave university at 21, I don't think you can possibly know what career you want to have until you have got a few years work experience under your belt and you decide what it is you love doing.
Yeah, good advice, good advice. And what's been the best advice you've been given in your career? Perhaps a bit of tough love or something that,
yeah.
Oh, that's a bit harsh, but looking back, you think, do you know what? I'm really pleased they told me that.
Yeah, I would say I've been incredibly lucky to have had very good bosses, leaders that I've worked with, who have given me, I suppose, quite a lot of autonomy and free rein to do things. So if I was working on a project, for example, I would often, you know, be worried that I'd got no experience in doing this project. And I think the best career advice I've been given is, you know, give it a try, do it. And, you know, by failing and making mistakes, you're actually going to learn the most. So had I not have had such supportive bosses or leaders who allowed me to try things, who allowed me to, you know, make mistakes along the way, I'm not sure that I'd possibly be in the position that I'm in now, because I suppose that, so the best advice I've been given, I suppose, is around, don't worry about failing. Don't worry about making mistakes. As long as you're not making the same mistakes continually, obviously. But, you know, don't worry about getting things wrong, because it's probably the best learning you will ever do. And, you know, and that's what, luckily, all of the good people that I've worked with have kind of instilled in me, that you've got to try things to fail, to learn what you would do differently next time.
Yeah. And going back to your days in recruitment, you know, as you say, a lot of people sort of see it as a negative, which I totally disagree with, because if you can be good at recruitment and the skills you learn, you must have learned so much in those days of, you know, how to communicate, how to deal with people, how to deal with rejection, resilience. Must have put you in great stead as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think had I not have spent sort of the first 14 years of my career in recruitment, I don't think I would be the commercially minded HR person that I am now. And a lot of the feedback I get from, you know, the businesses where I've been in-house HR, but also my clients now, is that they see me as a trusted advisor. You know, a good HR person, in my view, is a business person and an HR person, because you work so closely with the business. If you don't understand the business, you don't understand the commercial importance of, you know, the bottom line, you know, HR can't contribute to that business if they're not commercially aware. So yeah, that's what the recruitment, you know, the years I spent in recruitment really taught me, was understanding the importance of the numbers, and you know, it's got to be a commercially viable business.
Yeah, and I think certainly understanding the commercials is another great skill. You know, in recruitment, you learn great sales skills that perhaps are underappreciated in today's environment, which is silly, because we're always selling ourselves in meetings, in projects, and, you know, as well as to other companies. But also understanding the commercials and the figures of actually how it all works is also essential for our development.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, good. Okay, so what have you enjoyed most in your career, and you're pleased that you've done?
I think what I've enjoyed most is that point that I left recruitment, because it was a difficult decision to make, because by the time I left, sort of 14 years in, as I said, I was an account director. So I was earning a really good salary. I was earning loads of bonus. I had a flash BMW. Oh, I know. Get me, got BMW at age 29, I think I was. And essentially what happened was I took a massive step backwards and kind of started my first HR job with Oxford Instruments, and had no company car, took a 20k pay cut.
Wow.
and started at the bottom as an HR advisor. But you know, they were putting me through my CIPD, so they were paying for me to go to Oxford Brookes and do my qualification and do my training. Yeah. So that's the point in my career where, you know, I didn't do the university bit, you know, but this is age 30, deciding to kind of take a backward step in order to go forwards, as it were. But also studying, but I was studying something that I was really interested in. And that, I would say, is the point in my career where I feel I learned the most, actually. Even still to this day, I learned the most in that job, in that HR role, because I had such a great boss who gave me loads of freedom, loads of autonomy. But that's probably what I'm most pleased that I've done, is that I made that decision, that brave decision to give up my money, salary, perks, to kind of go and study and, I suppose, have a career at that point.
Yeah. And I think that's what can hit quite a lot of people sort of mid-career, that sometimes they are earning good money. They've got obviously responsibilities in life, that makes it sometimes, you know, very difficult for them to change. Sometimes people have said to me, I'd really love to change, but I physically cannot afford it. And sometimes it is that's why I think this reflection in terms of future-proofing yourself, you know, catches you at that moment and say, well, do I really want to spend my, you know, the next 20, 30 years doing this, or is now the time to go and make that change, which I think is very brave, because we can often be sort of just think of the money.
Yeah. And it, you know, and it would have been very easy for me to have stayed, and I could have stayed in recruitment, and I could have gone on to probably more senior positions and a bigger salary, and maybe even a different fancy car. However,
BMW.
And even bigger, you may be a 5 Series instead of a 3 Series.
Oh, cool, yeah.
Oh, I know. But
you're getting us excited now.
Yeah, I know. But the financial sacrifice, I was lucky. I had a roof over my head. But, you know, we did as a couple have to look at the financial side of it and say, okay, but it's only for 3 to 5 years that this will happen. Because actually, by doing that backward step, I should be able to go financially forward again. So you know, I had to have the support of my husband to do that. You know, he didn't financially support me, but we made that decision together that it was the right thing to do.
Yeah, brilliant. I think that's a really good piece of advice. Really good takeaway on this. So I think I might know what you might be going to say to us. So what advice would you give? You know, well, you've already sort of answered what you would have liked to have done differently at the start of your career. So what advice would you give somebody else, young adults starting out in their careers at the moment?
I would say don't be too hung up on what that first job is. You know, it may not be the sexy, exciting job title that you are looking for. It may not be where you see your career being. But if you are starting out in your career, don't be afraid to try different things. Also, don't be afraid to move on if things aren't right. I think you need to be careful about moving on too frequently, because, you know, one of the things that I certainly look for when I am looking at people's CVs is that they, it's not that they don't job hop, it's that they've got the, you know, the staying power, because things aren't always easy. So I want to look at, I look for people that have got sticking power. So just because something's tough or difficult, that's not a reason to move on. Maybe a good reason to move on is that you're not being challenged, or that you're not learning new things. But I didn't like it there. Oh no, I didn't like my boss. Oh, I didn't like this. I didn't like that. You know, that for me is not a good enough reason to move on. You know,
Yeah.
there is always things that you can learn in a position.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you're not being given enough to do, ask for more. You know, be brave, ask to do more challenging things.
Yeah.
And if you genuinely are not learning something, then move on. But don't be afraid to start in a job that isn't your ideal job, because you will still probably learn important skills in that role.
Always be learning.
Always be learning, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's down to you. You know, don't always think maybe that it's down to your boss or your employer to be giving those things to you. You need to ask for them, and you need to show willing.
And get involved.
Yeah, get involved, definitely.
So what was the most challenging period of your career, and what did you learn about yourself as a person?
Okay, so I was debating whether to share this with you or not. So I am going to share this with you. So the most challenging period of my career was when I worked at Harley Davidson. So the company was amazing. I had fantastic colleagues. I had an incredibly difficult person to work with who was one above me. Two above me, because my immediate boss was lovely. The VP of HR, so very, very senior person in Harley Davidson, was just very challenging. And I'd kind of established that probably at the interview. I thought, this lady's going to be quite difficult to work with, but I'm not going to have a huge amount to do with her, so it will be fine. And I'm pretty good, I think, at building relationships with people who are perhaps seen as difficult, and I've done it in the past, so it will be fine. However, it wasn't fine, and in essence, I was probably bullied by her. And as a result of that, you know, bearing in mind you're in HR, but you're being bullied by the most senior person in HR. So that's a bit of a tricky one. And I did ask for support, and I did speak to my MD, and I spoke to my immediate HR boss. And, you know, their response was, yeah, we know she's not a nice person. She's very difficult to deal with, but you've just got to get on with it. So I kind of tried to get on with it, and it came to a head when she rang me one evening and screamed at me for about 30 minutes down the phone. And at that point, I thought, right, enough is enough. I need to get out of this environment, because it's not good for me. It's not good for me. It's not good for my health if I stay. So that has definitely been the most challenging period of my career. But what I learned about myself is that I am very resilient. Actually, when I'm put in a situation like that with somebody who is very aggressive, I actually become very withdrawn and very quiet, which for those that know me know that it's not very often that I'm quiet, and that's not a good environment for me to be in, but that I am resilient, and that rather than letting myself become a victim, which I could have chosen to become a victim in that situation, I decided I would not let that person beat me. So having left Harley Davidson, that's the point that I decided I would set up on my own. Because I thought, do you know what? I want to work with businesses where, you know, there is a great culture, and if they haven't got a great culture but they want to change it, that I can help them make it a great place to work. So it was very much that pivotal point in my career that was difficult, but I learned about myself. I can be resilient. And equally, I wanted to work with businesses where they genuinely wanted to create a great culture and be, you know, very supportive of their employees.
Okay, brilliant, good. And I think that sort of, you know, puts together those two different stories you've spoken about, making those decisions to make changes as well, which I particularly like. Which, you know, I think that's always important. We have pivotal times in our careers where we think, well, we need to make these decisions, and make the decision and make it work for you. So bearing that in mind, which brings us to a lovely lead towards the last question. What are your next steps now in future-proofing yourself and your business in, you know, perhaps some quite challenging times that we're currently faced with?
Yeah, so it's funny because up until last Friday, I was working normally with clients and everything. The world, we knew coronavirus was coming, and everything seemed to be okay. And then by the time we got to Monday, it was a very different landscape. And literally, I'd gone from having a very, very busy diary to having no work in my diary at all, because everybody was cancelling and training courses were cancelled, and blah de blah. And I sat there and I thought, okay, so a bit like that victim or victor scenario that I just described. Okay, we could go into meltdown, we could panic, we could be worried about, how are we going to pay the mortgage and how am I going to pay my staff, which of course I am, and they come first. But it also is an opportunity. So I thought, well, yes, that's a problem, and we will manage that, and we've got enough cash reserves, etc., to cover ourselves. But okay, we're always saying we're too busy as a team. So now is the time to do all those things that have been on our to-do list that we never get time to do. So that's one thing. But the other thing is, in terms of future-proofing yourself, I've specifically set myself some personal development goals over the next month, because I don't often get a chance to either do some research into best practice or some of the online training that I've been meaning to do for the last 2 years, and I haven't done it. So all of those things I've wanted to do, I am doing over the next month, and I've set myself, proper written down goals to make. Here it is. In fact, look, there is my list.
Oh, we like that.
I'm going to do. So I'm going to be focusing on that over the next 4 weeks. But the other side of it is that, the other part of it is I'm now a non-exec director for 2 companies. And one of my goals this year for the business was that I would explore non-exec director opportunities. And I had written a list of people that I was going to approach to see whether they would like me to be an NED. And that was on January the 4th. And I haven't contacted any of them. So that is also going to be something I'm doing to future-proof myself, because it's another direction I would like my career to move in this kind of, I'm calling it the latter part of my career, David, that I would like to be doing more work around non-exec directors. So
brilliant. Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you very much for your time. It's been a brilliant insight into the world of Emma Browning. If you'd like to get into contact with Emma at all, and if you like, if you need HR support for your team, or need coaching on your personal development, or help in training your people on sort of the management and the HR side of things, please do get in contact with Emma Browning. You can find her on LinkedIn, or obviously contact me and I'll put you in contact, which is easily done. But I particularly liked, that story from, starting off in the recruitment industry, which does teach such wonderful skills. And sometimes it is frowned upon, but which is bonkers, because it does teach great life skills. And I do particularly like those 2 stories where you've had to make some real key decisions in terms of your development, going backwards to go forwards, and then making that real key change to then go out and work for yourself. And what you're now doing and having a clear planning moving forward, I think is really good advice for us all. So thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. And it's Thursday now. I know when people watch this, a bit different times. So Emma, have a good weekend. And
thank you.
I know it's been a bit of a strange week for us all. And I look forward to speaking to you again soon.